We are going to be talking to, I'm going to screw up the name properly, but David Pepose.
Yeah, you got it.
There he is, the magical voice who's not on the screen yet. But we talked to him, it was sometime last year when he was doing the Kickstarter for the first issue of the OZ. And as of when this interview is going to release, then the second issue will be up on Kickstarter. So he doesn't need much of an introduction because you already heard him. And so here he is.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, I'm excited to be to roll out the second Kickstarter for the OZ. It's been a long time coming. When this interview goes live, the Kickstarter will already be up, and it'll have been about a year to the day since our last Kickstarter began. And
time has no meaning anymore.
Yeah. There were a lot of reasons for that. One was the release of my series at AFTERSHOCK, Scout's Honor. I didn't realize what kind of traction that book was going to pick up, and I realized very quickly there's no reason to cannibalize one or the other. We can kind of give ourselves a little bit more runway. And secondly, I don't think it's any surprise that COVID. There was production delays related to COVID. Our artist Ruben Rojas is based in Spain. As you know, that is certainly a COVID hotspot, and so it took a little bit of time to sort of get him back on the rails, after some COVID delays. So, but that said, our team, we're really leaving it all out in the field. We're really kind of escalating the sense of scale and tension and stakes in a big way for our second issue. So I think when readers see what we have in store, they're going to realize it was definitely worth the wait.
And for people who didn't read the first issue, and I don't know why they didn't, can you kind of give a summary of what the first issue was about, and kind of where the second one picks up?
Sure. So the OZ, for anyone who didn't read our first issue, it's like, what if the Hurt Locker took place in the Wizard of Oz? It's the story of Dorothy Gale's granddaughter, who's a disillusioned Iraq war veteran who finds herself stranded in the war-torn land of Oz. And she discovers that when her grandmother killed two wicked witches and convinced the Wizard of Oz to leave, and then clicked her heels together and split, it caused a brutal power vacuum, not unlike Baghdad, that's led to decades of brutal civil war. And so now this new Dorothy is going to have to navigate her grandmother's former friends, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Courageous Lion, if she hopes to survive the horrors of the occupied zone, or as the locals call it, the OZ.
And so where does the second issue, this issue, pick up?
Sure. Well, our first issue was very much about, getting to know Dorothy and her sort of finding her feet as she's dropped into the land of Oz and realizes that her grandmother's stories were it wasn't just dementia. They really happened. And by the end of our first issue, without spoiling too much, she's answered the hero's call and joined the Wizard of Oz's resistance against the regime of the sinister Scarecrow. And so, that's where our second issue is going to pick up. Dorothy, unlike when she was in Iraq and Afghanistan, she really is realizing that she represents something bigger in the land of Oz, just based on who her grandmother was. Her grandmother was considered a war hero. Dorothy's considered the closest thing to royalty that Oz has left. And as a result, she's still grappling with things that she saw in the Middle East. But on the other hand, there's sort of this feeling of maybe I can avenge things that went wrong. Maybe I can make right what once went wrong. And at the same time, while Dorothy and her troops are sort of eking out some narrow victories, they're still very much outnumbered and outgunned. And it's all going to come to a head when the Scarecrow and them are sort of going head to head for what's considered almost a weapon of mass destruction in Oz, which is the all-powerful Silver Slippers. The Scarecrow wants to use them to build Oz into a perpetual war machine and invade our world. And so it's really Dorothy kind of fighting for two different worlds, as she's sort of going on the run from some superior forces. She's going to need reinforcements in a big way. And that's going to be kind of the heart of the second issue, is some of the other characters of Oz that Dorothy's going to meet and hopefully enlist their help.
Now, were you surprised by how well the first issue did? Because your goal, your Kickstarter goal, was $6,000, but and I'm not very good at math, but you did more than the percentage. That would take a little while for me to calculate, and I don't have that many hands and toes. So
yeah, no, we topped over 700% funded. It's wild. Nobody was more surprised than me. It's one of those things. It was my first Kickstarter. Thankfully, the passionate and devoted readership that I'd picked up from Spencer and Locke and going to the Chapel, my series over at Action Lab, I think they kind of came out in a big way for this series. And it was a real learning curve for me. I think Kickstarter is very much its own planet with its own laws of physics. And so I walked into it with a very conservative mindset. It was sort of, what's the amount of money that I could pay, not even to really break even, but to like break even on the art costs. I mean, I figured to eat money on the printing and shipping. And no, everybody really showed up in a big way. We were funded within 2 hours. And so that became like, I spent the rest of the campaign playing catch up, saying, okay, like I'd never planned for success. And so it was figuring out different ways to keep readers invested, to keep readers interested, to add on new things for more value in a way that wasn't going to blow up our production and shipping costs. And that's the one thing that I'm really proud of for this second campaign is we've prepared for success now. We hope we get funded. I mean, there's always a chance that we don't, but we've planned things in advance now. If we get stretch goals, we've got some very cool things in store. We're hoping that if we build it, the readers will come. And so if you liked things like our enamel pins last time, or our stickers last time, or our prints last time, you may want to back and tell your friends to back, because we might have some other cool stuff in store.
That was going to be one of my next questions, is what are you offering, this time for people who want to, help fund the project?
Yeah. So, the interesting thing about a second Kickstarter is we have to both look forward, but also, look towards new readers who missed us the first time, especially, this is on the heels of my AFTERSHOCK series, Scout's Honor. I think we got a lot of new eyes on that series. And so we're hopeful that they will join us as Yellow Brick Road Warriors. So, we've got a number of sort of returning and new rewards in store for our readership. If you missed the first Kickstarter, this is a perfect time to catch up. We're actually offering print and digital catch-up tiers for both issues 1 and 2. In the first 48 hours, we'll even have an early bird catch-up special, so you can get the first 2 issues at a discount price. Beyond that, we're offering the same kind of bundles that we did last time. So if you want to get all 4 covers for issue 2, you can. If you're a collector who missed the first Kickstarter, we have a 9-cover bundle, so you get all 5 covers from issue 1. We also have my trade paperback bundles. If you've never read any of my work, if you haven't read Spencer and Locke 2, Going to the Chapel, Scout's Honor, we will have trade paperback bundles for all of those series. We will also have cool rewards like being drawn into the book or getting an original commission from series artist Ruben Rojas. We'll have a couple samples of what he did last Kickstarter on our Kickstarter page that they really look terrific. We're doing Skype sessions with me. I've written for a number of publishers. I was the reviews editor at Newsarama for a decade. I've run a successful Kickstarter. So you can really kind of ask me anything you want. Something that I'm really excited about, though, we have 2 really fun rewards in store. First off, we have a small handful of handmade plush dolls from Spencer and Locke. We had them made for my creative team. We have a couple extra lying around, so I figured, let's throw them into the war effort. And my favorite reward, this is a brand new thing, for Scouts Honor. That was a series about a post-apocalyptic Boy Scout cult, and we offered limited edition Ranger Scout merit badges to participating realtors, I should say. And so we are offering, for the very first time, you can't get this anywhere else. We are offering 3 complete sets of 14 Ranger Scout merit badges. This will not be available anywhere else. Some of these merit badges are exclusive to events like Comics Pro. Some are planned to be exclusive to conventions in the future. Some are just exclusive to AFTERSHOCK and AFTERSHOCK employees. So if you want all 14, this is the place to do it. And yeah, we've got rewards for any budget level. Whether you just want to throw in $10 to get the PDF, or all the way to $1,000 to have me fly out for a store signing. We really want to meet readers at their interest level and where they're at. And to sweeten the deal, every single tier, from the $10 PDF, even the $5 thank you tier, we are also offering the first issue PDF of Spencer and Locke and Going to the Chapel, number
Nice.
1. So pretty much anything you're going to get 88 pages of story, no matter what, and that's on top of I'm hopeful we'll be doing another digital creator extravaganza like we did last time, which I believe was another 10 single issues PDFs. So it's a lot of bang for your buck, and that's on top of any other stretch goals we have in mind. We know that this is a higher price point than the direct market. These are artisanal comics. They're sent directly from the creators. It's the best way to sort of have any sort of financially equitable system for indie creators, in my opinion. And we want to make sure, though, that our readers feel like they're getting something for that, and really reward their investment and really make them feel like they're a part of the family.
Now, the OZ, I guess it's a 3-issue miniseries. After that, do you have any more stories that you feel like you'd want to tell in that universe, or kind of?
I always walk in with an idea. I always have a couple of ideas in my back pocket. It really depends, to make sure that there's interest. We want to make sure that we're leaving on a high note and not overstaying our welcome. And also, it's a tough series. I mean, Ruben Rojas is just doing the work of his career, but it's a very expansive world. But yeah, I do have ideas. That's something that a lot of people ask me. I was kind of surprised at this, but they're always asking for deep cut Oz characters. And, that was kind of a big balancing act that I had to weigh was, there's the Judy Garland film that's kind of cultural osmosis, and you don't want to go too far afield in case people are not as well versed in L. Frank Baum books like I am. And so, they were like, "Where's Ozma?" Everybody kept saying, "Are you going to have Ozma in the book? You're going to have Ozma in the book." And she in particular is a character that I would save for any sequels. She's a character that has history. Dorothy is considered royalty. Ozma is royalty. And that would kind of be some nice friction between the two characters. But that's something that's going to be saved. I feel like that would kind of take up a lot of the focus of a story. And I want to introduce, all the characters everybody knows and loves. So yeah, I do have some ideas in mind. But yeah, it's very far in the future. We probably won't be wrapping the third and final Kickstarter. It'll assuredly be sometime next year. Yeah. And so once we'll make sure Ruben's not dead. Then he and I can start getting back in the lab again.
Yeah, because it just seems like there's, not that I'm kind of well versed in Oz, but there seems like there's endless, stories that could take place. But I agree with what you say. You don't want to overstay your welcome, and
these are hard books to write. I mean, we've been doing our Kickstarters double sized. So all these issues are 44 pages a pop. And that's a lot. It's a lot to write. It's actually a lot more to produce, but yeah, it's based on sort of the passionate response to the OZ. I love this book. I think it's a really special series. I think it's one of the best books I've ever been involved in. And so yeah, having a team like as wonderful as Ruben and colorist Whitney Kogar and letterer DC Hopkins and our murderers row of cover talent. I'd be hard pressed not to make it my own return to Oz at some point.
So if we could shift gears for now, let's go to Scout's Honor, because that series really kind of piqued my interest, because I'm a former Boy Scout, and I'm just curious as to where the inspiration for that series kind of.
Yeah, well, so for me, it's funny. My inspiration was my younger brothers were Boy Scouts. We have about a 9-year age gap between me and my younger siblings, and when you grow up with triplets, you learn very quickly like the best way to keep your sanity is throw the kids in as many extracurriculars as you can. And so we tried the Boy Scouts for a while, and for the boys, it was camaraderie, and it was hanging out with your friends, and it was learning some practical skills, and a little friendly rivalry in the mix, but it was very positive. But on the outside looking in, even as a kid, you don't have to squint too hard to see the costumes and the bylaws and the tradition and the rituals. It could look like a cult. And so that kernel of an idea kind of rested in my head for over 2 decades. And I was watching a show called The Path on Hulu, and it's sort of about a Scientology style cult and what happens when a guy gets disillusioned with it and decides to leave. And sort of what happens to him, what happens to his wife, what happens to his family, what happens to sort of the second in command at this cult who's kind of running things behind the scenes. And as I was watching it, I thought, what's the weirdest thing that a cult could use as their Bible? And I thought about a Boy Scout manual, and the whole thing kind of clicked. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things. This was a very different series in terms of development than anything I've worked on before, because this was with a different publisher that I've never worked with before. I've been a huge fan of AFTERSHOCK for a long time. I've known their editor-in-chief, Mike Martz, since I was in college. I interned for him at DC Comics. He was the Batman editor at the time. And as soon as AFTERSHOCK announced that they were opening and that Mike was going to be, running the ship, I was like, okay, well, that's legit. I definitely want to throw in. And so I sent them a number of ideas, a number of high concepts. And of course, Scout's Honor was the one I had come up with like 2 weeks prior, maybe a week and a half. It was like the newest thing that I had done very little thought on. And of course, that was the one that AFTERSHOCK is like, yes, run with that. Of
course.
And for those who haven't read Scout's Honor, the quick pitch, it's kind of Mad Max meets Mulan. It's years after a nuclear apocalypse, a cult has risen from the ashes, and their Bible is an old Boy Scout manual. And so we follow a young initiate named Kit, who has had to conceal her identity as a woman in order to serve in the Ranger Scouts of America. They are decidedly male only, and so she's had to bind her chest and conceal her true identity. And it's what happens to Kit when she discovers her entire society, this way of life that she firmly believes in, has all been built on a lie. And that all kind of came about. I'm always trying to find the themes inherent in the premise. Like a premise can be super cool, and then I sort of am just like, is there anything to it, or is it just kind of me just jerking around for fun? And for the Boy Scouts, it was interesting. AFTERSHOCK had said, do the Boy Scout cult. And I immediately felt like, wait a minute, there's going to be a problem here. I can't just do a book with all dudes in 2021. That's just not going to. I pitched it in 2019, but I was just like, there's no way. That just it doesn't feel right in this current era. And then I thought, no, lean into that. That is weird. That is super weird to have an all dudes book. And what would it be like for a woman having to navigate that? And so yeah, that book really, a lot of it was informed, both by my experience watching my brothers in the Boy Scouts, but also I grew up in a particularly conservative upbringing in the Midwest, both politically and religiously as a Jewish man. And, I had a really profound political reawakening when I left home, and a spiritual journey that I think has been very different than that of my parents, which is very different than that of their parents. Mm-hmm. And, for me at first, it was very disorienting, finding out that like all these things that I had been told were gospel, leaving home and realizing, oh no, that's not really the bedrock that my parents thought it was, or that, it's not, it's a little distorted in the telling. And at the same time, you kind of have to like recalibrate a bit. Like you can certainly have certain values, but realizing like, oh, A plus B doesn't equal C in this case. And that really informed Kit's journey. Really the spine of the story in a big way is her trying to figure out, she believes in the Ranger Scouts. She believes that they can be a positive force. And when she's learned of some very sinister stuff in their history, it rattles her. And she has to figure out what's worth keeping and what does she have to remove. And when she does have to remove something, what does she replace it with? And I think it was one of those stories. I had no idea if it was going to connect. I always worry anytime a series is about to drop, is this going to be the one that I screw up? Is this going to be the one that they don't get?
Right.
And no, I think if anything, I think there's a profound, it's one of the best reviewed books I've ever worked on. People seem to really get what we were going for here. And it was really heartening, so I'm very excited with the response of that book.
Well, I really enjoyed. I still have I think 1 or 2 issues to read because, as always, I am always behind on my reading.
Sure.
But is there going to be any more stories in that universe that you want to explore?
There's no plans at the moment, but it's a never say never kind of thing. It really would depend on Luca Casalanguida, our artist in the book. He's terrific. I know he's doing some stuff over at Dynamite. He's back on his small independent comic James Bond. But I think Luca and colors Matt Milla and letterer Carlos Manuel would all have to be available and involved. And AFTERSHOCK would I want to make sure AFTERSHOCK would be interested. But it was a tough book. It was definitely a challenging one to write, to make sure I was handling everything with, I think, the right sensitivity and the right empathy. But I always have ideas in my back pocket. I think could be some really cool adventures, involving Kit, particularly involving Dez, who's kind of sort of the closeted son of the cult leader, and sort of his struggles as a gay man in a post-apocalyptic Boy Scout cult. I love Dez. He's my favorite character in the whole book, and he always kind of stole the show every time I wrote him. But
well, that was my next question. But go ahead.
It's not to say that I wouldn't be interested in a sequel, but I have found, especially I'm working on the sequel, the third and final volume to Spencer and Locke. And it's been a long time coming because I've been writing like 6 or 7 other books in the meantime. And sequels are hard, and I unless it's a book that you feel like very confident that you have another story in, I feel like you're always rolling the dice. You're always rolling the dice with any series. Statistically, I'm going to screw up one of these days. Statistically, I'm going to drop a stinker and it's going to suck because I'll put my heart and soul into it and it just will not. I think with sequels, it's like you're doing it with weighted dice. Like the odds are even more against you. You have less, real estate to draw from. And so it can be a case of diminishing returns. I feel like for me, the pull towards the new will always be fairly strong. I think I'm a restless person by nature. So yeah, it's one of those things I have people ask all the time, like, are you going to do more Scouts Honor? Are you going to do more Scouts Honor? The honest truth is we haven't even discussed it. I certainly wouldn't be opposed down the line. But I will say my plate is a little full with some new stuff. And I'm very excited for that.
That's always good.
Yeah. And hopefully for people to ask me if sequels for that are coming.
So will the Spencer and Locke, the volume, be through Action Lab also?
Yeah, that's the plan. We're doing a Garfield themed serial killer is picking off the Peanuts gang. So it's a lot of homework, Yeah. It's 3 very iconic mythologies and figuring out where do they connect. And the thing I've said because a lot of people are like, where's volume 3? Where's volume 3? And I wrote volumes 1 and 2 almost concurrently. It was pretty much once the trade dropped for volume 1, and I was like, okay, they haven't run me out of the industry yet. People seem to have liked that first volume. I was like, okay, I'm going to work on volume 2. I did that and going to the chapel and the development work for the OZ. I was kind of working on those all sort of simultaneously. I think I finished Spencer and Locke 2 well before I finished Chapel and well before I finished the OZ. But since then, I've written, let's see, I've written the OZ, I've written Scout's Honor, I've written my upcoming book, Grand Theft Astro. That's all finished. Going to the chapel, obviously. A couple other series that we either haven't announced or haven't found homes for yet. That's
right.
3. No, 4 more. And then I'm working on kind of a very big swing right now. So it's like, oh, that's 9 books, since volume 2. And so I consider, I'm trying to get my reps in. I feel like I want to show people what I've learned since volume 2. And without spoiling too much, we wanted there to be a little bit of a window of time between volumes 2 and that will make some of the things that we're going to be doing in that story hit with a little harder weight. So it's all kind of built into the structure, and it's also just making sure that we do it right. I would much rather take 5 years to get it right than to release it in 6 months and just totally miss the mark. Because at the end of the day, all it's going to matter to the readers when they have all 3 trades in their hand is it good? Did he stick the landing? And I consider that a big responsibility, and one that Jorge Santiago Jr. and I are both committed to making sure we take the time to do it right.
Definitely. So are you, with conventions kind of starting up now, are you planning any shows to do, or are you just kind of taking a wait and see approach?
A little bit of both. I mean, to be honest, I'm doing my first store signing at Atomic Basement Comics. It's an outdoor signing for Free Comic Book Day this weekend. So I guess by the time this goes up, this will be in the past tense. I'm currently signed up for Rose City Comic Con. It's kind of a big question mark, I think, in my eyes, if it's going to happen. They seem to be full speed ahead, and I'm curious kind of how it's going to go. Same thing for New York. I'm signed up for that as well. But by virtue of they haven't even told anybody what's up with Emerald City, they haven't even said to anybody if they've been accepted. I think Reed Pop is keeping a very close eye on things. I think it's a 50-50 chance if those shows happen. They already canceled the New York Auto Show, which is happening later this month at Javits. So I don't really know. I do have my trepidations about it. I mean, I'm fully vaccinated, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people at these shows that aren't. So it is a little bit of a wait and see. It's kind of getting a sense of how are the numbers going to look in 3 weeks. If the numbers are looking even worse than they are now, I may sort of pull the ripcord. I don't know. And that's, I think, another reason why I like Kickstarter so much is you're able to emulate certain parts of the convention circuit. You're able to have interactivity with your readership. You're able to offer them, I think, a fairly easy to navigate storefront for whatever they want. And you're sort of able to kind of play up that enthusiasm and really just be like, hey, we've got something cool. Like, you are a part of this. These books wouldn't exist without our readers. And but it's tough. It's a real challenge, and it's very disheartening. I last year was supposed to be a big convention year for me, and instead I wrote 4 books, which is probably a good thing, But I was kind of hoping to get back on the road this year, and it's looking less and less likely by the minute. But hopefully enough people will do the right thing soon, and hopefully we'll have a more of a return to normalcy next year before things mutate and then really backslide. Well,
if New York Comic Con happens and you go, and my son is vaccinated and I go, hope maybe we'll have to catch up and
please
meet in person.
But yeah, I miss being on the road. I miss being able to meet new readers. I miss being able to kind of show them what new stuff we have. And the only sort of plus side, and it's a very minimal plus side, but I'm trying to see the silver lining, is next time most readers see me, I'll have a lot more on my table and a lot more to share with them. But if you don't want to wait, back the OZ, because then you can just buy all of it off of me directly.
Well, as we wrap up, you want to give a final pitch for the Kickstarter, and anything else you'd like to talk about?
If you're a fan of things like Mad Max, The Old Guard, Fables, DMZ, you're going to love the OZ. And like I said earlier, if you missed our first campaign, don't worry. We've got plenty of opportunities to catch you up and bring you up to speed. You'll see in our Kickstarter page, I put the first 11 pages of issue 1 up, as well as the first 11 pages of issue 2. Like, we're putting our money where our mouth is. We want you to get like a very substantial preview so you know what you're getting yourself into. And we've got all sorts of fun rewards to make sure you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. It's the first 48 hours are really crucial if you're thinking about backing it. We'd love it if you joined us in the first 48 hours. That's what places us higher in Kickstarter's algorithm, is the number of backers we get in the first 2 days. That's why we're doing some early bird specials. Something I actually wrote in a frequently asked questions post today. Kickstarter will not charge you until the campaign ends. So it's not a matter of like, oh, I'm waiting for payday. You will be charged September 15th. That's when the Kickstarter campaign ends. So if you see something that you're interested in, jump on it early, because some of this stuff, especially getting drawn into the book, especially the commission tiers, especially the Spencer and Locke plushies, especially the Scouts Honor badges, those I think are going to go by fairly quickly. It's one of those things that we're just so thrilled to have readers. And if you're curious, we've got some very affordable tiers for you. We would love it to have people join us as honorary Yellow Brick Road Warriors. So you can join the OZ. It's a bit.ly/the comic, or you can go to bit.ly/the comic 2. Both links will take you to the same site. And tell your friends. It's a fun book.
I'll be sure to include the links in the show notes, and when I post it, and I'll tag you on everything, and then I'll also include a link to the there too, so people can find it very easily.
Awesome. And if anybody wants to follow me on social media, I'm at Twitter and Instagram at PeposeD. It's my last name, first initial. David Pepose Comics on Facebook. You can subscribe to my newsletter, Pep Talks, at bit.ly/pepnews. I send that out every 3 weeks to make sure my family knows I'm still alive. You can visit my website, davidpepose.com.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you once again. It was a pleasure catching up with you, and stay safe, stay healthy, and you're welcome back anytime you have something new coming up. It sounds like you do, which it sounds like you do.
Coming soon. So thank you so much for having me. And I really appreciate you taking the time.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.